All right, friends, I am super, super excited for who I'm sitting here with today. I get to welcome for the very first time to the Girls Night podcast, Dr. Sarah Jeffrey. Sarah, welcome to Girls Night.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here.
This is so fun. Okay, so for women who haven't gotten to meet you yet, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and a fun fact about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, Dr. Sarah Jeffrey, I'm one of the co-founders of Aya Naturopathic Medicine. I'm just like, stop and explain right there because most people have not heard of naturopathic medicine. So I'm a naturopathic doctor, and that means I'm a primary care doctor who looks at lifestyle first. So we look at diet, nutrition, stress management, sleep, all of that before we move on to potentially supplements and prescriptions. So it's just a different way to look at medicine. I love what I do. I mostly focus on mental health and well-being, but I am still a general doctor. Oh, and my fun fact.
Yeah, okay. I was going to forget. Go. Okay, fun fact. Go.
My fun fact is that I absolutely love to cook. And I used to be a prep chef for a farm-to-table dinner series and even competed in some Iron Chef competitions in my undergrad.
I did not know that about you.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic fun fact. That is a fantastic fun fact.
They really kept us on our toes. We did secret ingredient white asparagus one year.
Ooh, I don't even I would have no idea. I'm not a good cook, so I would be in big trouble with that. What do you do?
That one really put me through my paces because we had to make a dessert, and we ended up making a white asparagus ice cream, which was subtle with white chocolate, but that was really pushing it.
Oh man. Okay. That's so awesome. For being such a bad cook or an uninterested cook, I'm very interested in food. And so I love learning about food and reading about food. And my favorite genre of books is food memoirs, especially if they involve some sort of travel. And I love food shows. So I'm like very into all of that. I'm not quite into like making my own food. So
yeah, that makes sense. I think it's also hard. Like life is so busy. Like you have to really love it to make that your thing.
Yes, that's true. Well, okay, Sarah, I'm going to add on a fun fact. This is so fun. You guys, Sarah is my cousin, and I have never gotten to have a cousin on Girls Night, but we've had our whole lifetime's worth of girls' nights in real life. And so you guys, Sarah has been my friend for my entire life, has been my cousin, obviously, for my entire life. But you've been one of the wisest people in my life for my entire life. And there are so many, we've been through every life stage together, and you just have always been just such a great pal, but also such a great sounding board. And I trust your wisdom and your guidance on everything. And I'm so proud of you for all of the work you've done over the last however many years, because you being a doctor is very new for you, right?
It is, yeah. It's my second career.
How do you say, I know all of this with psychology, but I don't know how to say it. When did you get licensed, or when did you get, is that what it's called for being a doctor?
Yeah, it is. And I just want to first kind of talk about how fun it is that we're cousins, because I think all of the seeds of what we're doing now were planted on a kayak in the middle of Squam Lake. And we would chat about all of our big ideas in life. And here we are executing them. So it's really fun to be here today.
Yep. That's really cool.
So I did first have a career in healthcare administration. And I kept thinking, if I could do it all over again, I would be a naturopathic doctor. When I graduated in 2009, it was that big recession, didn't know what I wanted to do. And I took the only job I could get, which was grant writing. And one thing led to another. I stayed on that career track for 8 years. And it kind of reminds me of some of your content. It was just all right, I'm going to age anyway. I need to just press pause and go do what I actually want to do. Yeah. So, I left the job.
How long did the school process take from beginning to end?
The best thing about it is that I kind of just took the leap without doing too much research. And I'm glad, because I might not have taken the leap so eagerly, because it was then 4 years of medical school and a year of residency, and definitely the most intense 5 years of my life.
Jeez. I literally cannot imagine. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited for you. And I'm so glad that you took the leap. We could talk about that forever, honestly.
We certainly could. Like, and that's such a theme for you too. And the leap is now into the life that I love, and I absolutely love what I do. No looking back.
Well, Sarah, I want to there. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about, but one of the things that we've never talked about on the show before, which is crazy, is sleep. And I love that you approach medicine from like a lifestyle first, perspective, because I know that there are so many things that we can do to take care of ourselves that are like, it's like low hanging fruit, but it's somehow hard to reach anyway. And sleep is one of those things where I know that we're so much better off if we sleep well. And so I just have a whole bunch of questions. I want to pick your brain. First of all, from a medical perspective and a mental health perspective, why is sleep so important for us as women?
There's 1,000 reasons why sleep is the most important thing for us. And this is why it's one of the main things I talk about with my patients. And it's something that so many people struggle with. In terms of mental health, sleep disturbance makes it really hard to regulate our emotions. And I think that's something probably we can all relate to, right? You get a bad night of sleep, maybe you're a little moodier, you're quicker to snap. So it makes it tough to sustain good relationships. But it also makes you much likelier to have anxiety or depression to the level that it could be diagnosed. So if you have consistent sleep disorders, you're actually 50% more likely to get a diagnosis of anxiety or depression because sleep
Oh,
is so important for regulating our mood.
wow. So is it that it causes anxiety or depression, or does it show up in us in ways that look like anxiety or depression? Does that make
A little
sense?
bit of, yeah, it does make sense. And it's actually a little bit of both. So there's this cyclical relationship where anxiety and depression can cause poor sleep, but poor sleep can also cause dysregulation in our hormones and our neurotransmitters in a way that makes us more anxious or more depressed. So you get a little bit of a vicious circle going on. But also, symptoms of depression can make it like harder to sleep too and can look like poor sleep. So it's hard to tease out a lot of the times, which is what makes my job so interesting.
Yeah.
Another really big thing that concerns women is kind of metabolism and being able to make healthy food choices, and for some to lose weight. And one thing that I read a study on that was so interesting is that people who have poor sleep on average eat 300 calories more per day
Wow.
because it's really hard to find willpower. And because ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone, is increased when we sleep poorly, and leptin, the hormone that makes us feel full, tends to be lower when we don't sleep well.
Whoa. That's like three things all at the same time.
Yeah. So sleep, it helps us regulate our appetite, it helps us regulate our moods, and it also helps us do repair processes. So when you don't sleep well, your immune system doesn't have time to rebuild, so you get more sick more frequently. Our inflammation levels are higher. Really, all in all, our body needs that sleep time to repair.
Okay, that's wild. How this is a debate in my house
Mhm.
because I need a lot more sleep. I think I need like normal to slightly more than normal amounts of sleep, and my husband needs like or can survive on like shockingly little sleep. How much sleep do we actually need as adults? And is it different from men and women? Do you know?
I don't know about differences between men and women per se, more between individuals. But the debate that you and your husband have is very common. Like, we all need such different amounts of sleep. I think that the 8 hours a day has become so popular as the standard, but that's a bell curve. So some people, like I'm somebody who I really need 7 hours of sleep. And if I happen to get like 8.5 or 9, the next day I'll get 6. So my body just averages out to 7 and I do well. Other people really need 9 hours of sleep to function. So, like, trusting your body wisdom is kind of my first key point, kind of in the discussion about how much sleep we need.
Hmm.
But there is some science saying that people who consistently get less than 7 hours do have some of the poor health outcomes that we were talking about previously.
Okay. So 7 is like kind of the benchmark. And
Mhm.
then but after that, yeah, I think I'm like I mean, if I really have my way, I'm like a 9 hours person,
Yeah.
which
And,
isn't
I think to the
crazy.
extent that life allows it, like, I really believe in our own intuition about our health and our bodies. And if your body says 9 hours and you can pull it off with your schedule, go for it.
Yeah.
But I also like to reassure folks because the whole 8 hour myth drives so many people so crazy. They're like, I'm not getting 8 hours, I'm going to be sick, whatever. That standard was built before people were wearing Fitbits and Aura rings and all those things. So the standard was really the idea of if you were in bed for 8 hours, you were probably okay. And we don't sleep all of the time that we're in bed.
Oh, okay.
Right? So, like, we
Interesting.
wake up to pee, maybe we take a little bit of time to fall asleep. So, that whole idea of 8 hours of sleep was because if you slept for 8 hours, you'd probably get over 7 hours of sleeping time.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, I cannot be the only person whose mind is blown right now. That is so so they whoever they are included some buffer time. We don't actually need to be like dead to the world for 8 hours in order to be
Yeah.
healthy.
So, for anyone who does use a wearable, you can go ahead and let yourself off the hook. I have so many patients who are coming to me saying, my Aura Ring says I'm only getting 7.5 hours of sleep. I know I should be getting 8. 8 was built on the idea of 8 hours in bed, not 8 hours of sleeping time.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, that's really helpful. What are some of the most common barriers you see women running up against that keep us from getting the sleep that we need?
Oh my gosh, so many, Stephanie. Women tend to be go, go, go all day. And so imagine we're telling our brains and our bodies to go up here, up here, up here, up here. And then all of a sudden it's bedtime. So we're supposed to come down to 0. That's a huge transition for our body and for our mind. The other thing I see a lot is like sleep revenge, which is that your whole day you're doing stuff for other people. And then all of a sudden at bedtime, it's your only me time. And so maybe you deserve a treat. Maybe that's a glass of wine. Maybe you feel like scrolling on your cell phone. It's your only quiet time to do that. Maybe you feel like you deserve an episode of a show. And all of those things for different reasons disrupt sleep. But it makes sense that we want to reclaim a little bit of our agenda for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other things, like all of the factors of life, right? If you have kids, they might wake you in the night. Your pet could wake you in the night. Maybe your partner snores. Like so many factors can wake us in the night. And even if none of that acts up, so many of us have so much on our to-do lists. And at least for me, when I used to struggle with sleep, it was that I would wake up and like, oh shoot, I forgot to put such and such in my planner. Or I'd start thinking about a treatment plan for a patient or a problem I was trying to solve. So we're just on overdrive, so many of us.
Yeah, that last one resonates with me the most. Although I do have absolutely kids waking me up and all the other things. Keeping my mind quiet all night though, especially if I have a lot going on, or getting my mind quiet enough to fall asleep in the first place, that's something that I've struggled with on and off, like in life. What can we do about like a patient's treatment plan when an idea or like oh, I forgot to get a birthday present for so and so or something like that, when those things pop into our heads, what can we do with those? Like, what do we do?
Yeah. So I have kind of a short term and a long term answer for you. So I'll give you both. In the short term, I always tell my patients to keep ideally a little notepad by their bed so that you're not getting the blue light from your cell phone, but it could be your cell phone. And when that thought pops into your head, just write it down and then tell yourself, like literally tell yourself, okay, I'm going to come back to that tomorrow.
Okay.
And then try to go back to sleep. So then your brain knows, okay, the thought's captured. So I don't need to kind of worry about keeping it. And so that's kind of the quick fix. And sometimes that'll work and sometimes it won't. So I'll now kind of talk about the longer term solution, which is worry journaling. And this, I rolled my eyes at worry journaling for the longest time. But the idea is that every night before you go to bed, you set a timer for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on how many worries you feel like you have. And you write down every little thing on your mind, things on your to-do list, just worries about family members and friends, or literally anything on your mind goes in your worry journal. And then trust me, over time, your brain kind of knows, okay, I've dumped it and now I'm getting into bed and I don't have to worry.
Weird. Wow.
Yeah.
It kind of like, I love journaling, but my immediate reaction is like, I don't know, like, should we do like a gratitude journal or something instead? Or are we more likely to spend time ruminating on those worries because we spent that 10 minutes? Or does it really kind of clear them out?
So the whole idea of this practice is that it is human to worry. Like all of us have little things to worry about and that's okay. And instead of resisting the urge to worry all day and then being haunted by it in the night, it's kind of acknowledging that it's just part of the human experience and giving it a space. And then all day, if worries pop up or at night when worries pop up, you say, I'm going to do that at worry journaling tomorrow. So it's kind of giving it a little room so that it can exist rather than trying to push it away. because pushing it away can be exhausting. But to your point, my personal practice is that I do my worry journaling and then a little gratitude journal and then 5 minutes of meditation to kind of close it out.
Oh, I like that. That does make a lot of sense. Like we feel like, oh, we shouldn't be worrying, like we should push these thoughts away. But then yeah, once we're in like not in control of our thoughts in the same way at night that they would all pop up, but saying, it's okay. Like this is part of it. This is part of being a person and giving it some space to come out and a place to put it. I like that. I've never heard of that before. That's really cool.
Thank you. And it works really well. But I will say, this is something I practice myself. And it's really tempting to be like, oh, I'm really tired. I didn't get enough sleep last night. So I'm going to skip this whole worry journaling situation and just go right to bed. And I have found, at least for me personally, that it doesn't take that long. It's like 5 minutes of worry journaling, maybe 2 minutes to come up with some gratitude items and a 5-minute meditation. So like 15 minutes tops, and I sleep so much better. So it ends up being, even when I really don't want to do it, it ends up being worth it.
And like giving back more than it took.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. I really like that.
Thank you.
I know that stress, the amount of things that we have going on in life and things on our minds, is one of the things that keeps us up the most. Other than worry journaling, do you have any like tips or techniques or anything that we can do to lessen some of the stress in our lives? Because while I totally can't cite any of the science, I mean, you can probably, I know that stress is really bad for our health, right? Anything you have for, I don't know, calming some of that down? I would love to
Yeah,
hear.
absolutely. And I also will just start with a little stress myth busting, because you're absolutely right. When we're chronically stressed and we don't feel like we can control it, absolutely bad for our health. However, there's a really, really good TED talk. I think it's by Kelly McGonigal, about like the good side of stress. And stress shows up because we actually care about something. So imagine, like, if you think about what you're stressed about, like for me, I stress about my patients. I really care about my patients. I stress about, like, maybe I said something and it didn't come off right to a loved one. It's because I care about that relationship, right? Like, if you don't care about whatever it is you're worrying about, you're not worried about it. So, like, that reframe has been really helpful for me, because I'm able to be like, oh, this is actually, in a weird way, like an expression of love for my patient, my loved one, whatever it is.
Oh, I wonder what it would look like to like recategorize that then. If you're putting like I'm stressed out by XYZ and it's just this huge bin full of everything that causes you like a slightly elevated heart rate and some, I don't know, intruding thoughts and, repetitive thoughts or things like that, a pit in your stomach. Like if you were to separate those out between, I don't know, I guess true worries and, well, this is me caring about this thing, the worry bucket would probably be a lot smaller.
Yeah, it would be. And there are absolutely silly worries that aren't tied to love. But like, I just want to offer that up first. Like, it's really important to change our relationship with stress, because it's not always bad. And like, even exercise, all doctors, myself included, recommend exercise. And that's a stressor on the body, right? You're raising your heart rate, you're like doing work, but that's a good stressor. And there's even a new term called eustress, which is for the good side of stress. So, that's something potentially for your listeners to look into. But to actually answer your question,
Wait, tell me first, what did you
yeah,
use? How do you spell that?
it's EUSTRESS. So like the U prefix meaning good. So it's eustress. It's the opposite of distress, which is bad stress.
So, like, what else would fit in that category other than, I guess, working out?
Working out, but like I also think, to the extent that you're in control of it, some of those worries about like loved ones and works can be in that eustress category, right? Because it's coming from passion, it's coming from drive. It's just when those worries and anxieties get so big that they're interfering with our ability to do stuff, that's when it becomes a problem. But just because we're having stress but we're managing, that doesn't necessarily take a toll on our health, especially if we believe it's good for us. Like, our beliefs really matter there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wild. Oh, that's really cool.
So
Okay.
maybe
Okay.
in the show notes too, we want to link to this Kelly McGonigal Good Stress podcast,
Yeah.
or TED Talk, just in case people want to
Okay.
check it out.
Yeah, we will. We'll make sure to link to that. I'm
Perfect.
excited to check it out too. Tell me about lowering or reducing bad stress,
Yeah,
de-stress.
absolutely. So yeah, we're going to talk
De-stress
about that.
and distress.
So one thing is when we're go, 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 the stress just builds up. So one thing I like to think about are like little mindfulness snacks or self-care snacks, because I don't know about you, but when you're really busy, the idea of carving out an hour for a bubble bath or like 30 minutes for a yoga practice can sometimes feel really overwhelming. But we all have time for these little mindfulness moments. So, for example, for some patients, I tell them like every time they go to the bathroom, when they're washing their hands, take 3 deep breaths, little mindfulness snack.
Oh,
Or another good one is a mindful shower. Like typically in the shower, we're thinking about like tasks and people, and that's a really crowded shower, right? There's a lot going on in that shower with you. But if you can use your time in the shower to like feel the hot water on your body, smell the soap that you're using, like really enjoy the lather, like that can be a little mindfulness snack as well.
and that, like, tell me what the result of that is. Like, what does it do for again, this is something that like I could come up with a mostly correct answer for this, but I want to hear like an actually correct answer. Like, what does mindfulness, and whether in lunch form or snack form, do for our like mental and physical health? And then also same with breathing, because like again, like I could come up with like a mostly correct answer, but I want to know more than my mostly
Yeah.
correct.
So the simple, this is oversimplified, but it really works for most people. Our nervous system has 2 modes. One is the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight and flight. And then we also have our parasympathetic nervous system, and that's our rest and digest nervous system. When we're in our sympathetic nervous system, we're making stress hormones, we're ready to fight off a tiger. And this is really the problem, right? Because like in evolution, it made sense because like saber-toothed tiger running at us, we're going to mount a big stress response, run away from the tiger. It's going to fuel our muscles, our heart's going to pump. And then after we successfully run away, the stress response comes down. The problem is in modern life, we can't tell whether our to-do list items feel like tigers, little conflicts we have feel like tigers. There's tigers everywhere, and we stay elevated. And when we're elevated, we're prioritizing what our body needs to fight the tiger or run away, which means we're not doing digestion, we're not doing repair activities, we're not really taking that time to reboot. And so by doing mindfulness activities, we're letting ourselves come down from the sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic nervous system. And we want to have an even balance between using those 2 modes, if you will.
That's I think the reason that I've been learning a lot about my nervous system in the last like year or so, because I do spend a lot of time feeling like I'm about to fight a saber-toothed tiger, but I haven't known like what the thing is that makes me feel that way. It turns out one of the big things is sound. When
Mm.
I like sound is something that overwhelms me a lot, and I have 2 tiny, very loud humans that live with me all the time. And so like and I can usually do about 2 sounds, 2 competing sounds, but when there's a third, that's when I kind of snap. Or I can like pay attention to sort of 2 things, 2 kind of stressful things at once, but then if one more thing comes in, it's like I don't have enough hands for this. And that's when I get
Yeah.
super overwhelmed. So I've been paying attention to that a lot more this year, and learning about that. But I think I struggle understanding the sympathetic and parasympathetic, because sympathetic sounds like a good thing. And
It does. It
like the name
does.
doesn't fit.
No, they need a
I mean, it
rebrand
is a
for
good thing.
sure.
Yeah, it's like the stressed one and the relaxed one or something. But that makes a lot of
Exactly.
sense to tell your body, hey, like there is no tiger.
Mhm.
You're okay.
I actually am a huge fan of self-talk. So like literally telling yourself like, you know what, this is something on my to-do list. I'm actually going to be safe. Like it's going to be okay. Like I'm safe. It's fine. I'm going to get through this.
I love that. I love that.
Other than the mindfulness snacks, the other thing is like just reducing the load in our brain. And that can be through just doing a to-do list or some sort of a planner, like to keep track of our to-dos so that our brain's not to manage all of that load. That can be really helpful. And then I hate to say it, but one of the most important things is boundaries.
We love boundaries around here. So don't
Yeah.
hate to say it. Tell me more.
So I had this great experience in undergrad. I went to Wesleyan. I had an advisor who told me that I had a buffet mentality. And so, buffet mentality is that you're wandering down your undergrad life and you say, like, mac and cheese, good. Chocolate cake, good. Salad, yum. Waffle, yum. Like individually, evaluating each thing individually. And then you get back to the table. Honestly, this happens a lot at Squam Lake. And you have this big plate of stuff that doesn't go together and it's overflowing, and then you get indigestion.
Okay, that doesn't not resonate with me.
Yeah.
That's, yes. And also
Yeah.
everyone, like we just had Thanksgiving not that long before we're talking here. So it's like everyone does that at Thanksgiving too, where you're like, well, I'm going to take like a small portion of this, a small portion of this, but like all the small portions add up. And then you're like, I need to get like a second plate here.
Yeah.
This is like, yeah. Okay. So then what instead?
So instead of buffet mentality, that's looking at one thing at a time. It's doing long range planning for yourself. And maybe that's a week out where you look at what things are going on. Or maybe you sit down at the beginning of the year and you look back and you say, like, what things did I value most in the past year? You know, was it time with my kiddos? Was it a certain work project? Was it hiking? Whatever it was, how can you rearrange your life to do more of what you valued? And like by being clear on what you valued, it makes it easier to figure out what you need to say no to. And the no's are never easy to say. For me, I always am such a people pleaser. I get like all geared up like to say no. And then I feel the biggest sense of relief once I've done it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. One of the things that I had to start doing, I think it was like right after I moved away from Denver and moved to Nashville. So every time I would come back to Denver, I would have a list of people that I wanted to see. And it was everyone from like my mom to my longest standing best friends, my sister. It was like my closest people, but it also was like friends from college that I hadn't seen in a while, or someone that I wanted to keep in touch with, or someone who had moved to Colorado but I hadn't seen them there yet, or whatever. The list was really long and the time was always too short. Even if I was there for several weeks, it's just there wasn't enough time. And so finally, that finite amount of time and like infinite list of people that I wanted to spend time with, it finally kind of put things into perspective for me. And I was like, okay, well, if I see this person who I don't know that well, and like, I mean, if I had all the time in the world, I would love to spend time with them, but I don't. Like if I give time to them, that's time that I don't get to see my sister, or time that I don't get to be with my dad, or time that I don't get to be with my best friend, or whatever. It's like one does take from the other. And so I had to start, like, if I'm in a particularly tricky season with this, I have to like really make a hierarchy and be like, who is the most important? Who needs the most from me? And who do I need the most from? And who do I want to spend time with the most? Like, who are my top priority people? And kind of rank it down from there. Because then once I see that written out, which, gosh, it feels like such a cruel thing to rank the people in your life. But if I see that, then the next time I'm talking to someone who's like, hey, would you like to come to this thing? Of course, I'd like to come to this thing. But if it means I don't see my kids, like, that's not a good thing anymore.
Right.
So it helps like kind of put that into perspective. But I can't get over the buffet thing because I feel like that is so real. That is so real. I like, instead are we like plating something, or like, do you have the, I don't know, what is it now? It's not the food pyramid. It's like the
My Plate.
My Plate. The My Plate.
I think it's the My Plate.
Okay.
Yeah. And the My Plate looks different for everyone with their life activities. But because there are some universal truths, I do think that we all need a little bit of that plate dedicated to us and what we need. And some of us are introverts, and that means quiet time alone. Some of us are more extroverted, and that might mean like dinner with some really good friends. But, I think one thing we often have is we have a lot of like empty calories, if we're going to use this analogy, on our plate, like things that are have-tos, but that don't give us any, like they don't fill us up at all without putting on those meaningful pieces onto our plate. And so I really think just taking that step back once a year, once a month, to really think about like, well, what do I want to put on my plate? Like imagine if you went into Thanksgiving being like ahead of time, which I don't recommend. For Thanksgiving, honestly, I recommend the free-for-all. But if you went through and said, you know what, I really love mashed potatoes. That's my favorite. And then maybe you'd say, you know what, I'm going to skip the stuffing this year, just do some mashed potatoes. And like, you could kind of just be more planful. And that's the same with your life, right? Like just figuring out what ahead of time that you want to fit in. The other thing I'll offer, Aviva Ram, who's like this really cool midwife MD, she did a great podcast on boundaries. And she offered up that if something doesn't fit in your schedule this week, you should probably say no to it. Like if you couldn't imagine adding it in this week or this month, because we all have this like fantasy that we have this free time somewhere out there in the future. And I do this all the time. Like if a plan is like more than 2 months away, I just say yes to it because like I feel like I'm gonna be free.
Uh-huh.
And then I just load up the future. And then like that's kind of where it happens. Like the week of, I'm aware that I'm busy and I'm not putting extra things on. And so Dr. Rom's point is however busy you are this week, that's probably your baseline. And so if it doesn't fit in this week, it probably doesn't fit in later either.
As a fellow people pleaser, what's your response when you can't do something? Like how do you tell someone you can't do something?
Work in progress, but not to keep referencing things, but I love the book Nonviolent Communication. And the idea of nonviolent communication is that you make it clear that it's about you and not about the other person. So I really try to say, you know what? I've really overbooked myself. I'm feeling so overwhelmed. I'm starting my practice right now. I can't squeeze this in a way that it's going to feel meaningful to you. Like I want to wait till we can catch up and I can be present. That's really, I use my presence as my big excuse. Like if I come, my body will be there, but my mind won't be there too. Like I'm spread too thin.
But how do you not like, if it's to Dr. Rom's point,
Yeah.
that's the moment when I absolutely go, what if we did it after the first of the year? What if we did it after this project's over? Whatever. And then I push it to like, I kick the can down the road. So like, how do we stop it? How do we just say a full no?
A full no. I mean, I think that's like you were saying, like it feels cruel with your list. But like one of the things is I often kick things down the can or like down the pike if I don't actually want to do them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on the receiving end of that where plans keep getting delayed and delayed and delayed. It doesn't feel good. I actually really prefer it if someone's like, you know what, I have so much going on right now. I have 2 little kids or I'm launching a business. I'm not sure when this can work out, but I'll reach back out or something like that.
Yep. That's good. That's good. I will reach back out. It's so funny. Boundaries have been, I mean, like the lesson of my life for the last probably 6 years or so. But the saying no, especially when it comes to things that like in theory, I do want to do, but like today or this week or something, like I can't even imagine. But like in theory, I do want to. And so, yeah, that's that point about not saying yes to something or not like, kicking it down the road is a good one for me. Like, ooh, that's tough. One thing that I had to learn because the buffet thing got me in a lot of trouble kind of when this boundary work started a handful of years ago. I would double book myself or I would commit to something that I definitely didn't have the time or the energy for. And I had to practice. And a friend taught me this, that when someone asks you something, you say, that sounds so fun. I would love to do that. Let me look at my calendar and I'm going to get back to you. Or let me talk to my business partner, or let me talk to my husband or wife, or let me talk to, let me like sit with this for a second, consult whoever else it affects, and I will get back to you because I'm an instant yes. I'm like, yeah, of course I want to do that. And so, but instead saying like, well, yes, of course I want to do that. Let me figure out if I can and get back to you. And it just takes you out of that like instant response mode because that really is where I get in trouble.
I love that. And, I have a good friend who is so good with boundaries. I've learned a lot from her. And she just is kind of really upfront with where she is. And it feels so kind to be on the receiving end of it. So I'll be like, hey, like, do you want to, get together on Friday? And she'll be like, you know what? I know this is a really busy week, so I can't begin to know how I'm going to feel on Friday. Is it okay if we make that a tentative? And then
like, yeah.
Either I say, you know what, yeah, that really works for me. Or I'm like, you know what, I really want plans this Friday for whatever reason. So I'm going to say, like, let's save our rain check for another day. And I'm going to find someone who's like really ready to go out on Friday.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
But if the person cares about you, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, Stephanie's taking care of herself. I love that. Or if they have a genuine need and it's like, Stephanie, that's cool that you want to push this out, but like, I'm really stressed about XYZ. Then you have more information and maybe you reconsider. Because like we were talking about, right? You make that kind of priority list. If somebody you love is in crisis, they bump up the list and maybe all of a sudden it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But if they're just like me, I can't hear your boundary, that's probably not your friend.
Yeah. Yeah. If they're offended by your boundary, then something else is going on there. I
Yeah.
also I've been on the receiving end of some boundaries where it's been like, hey, I really would love to do this, but I just don't have the capacity right now. But like, thank you for thinking of me. Or in this season, I'm focusing on this, so I cannot, blah, blah, blah. By having someone else say no to me, it's like this reminder that I can also say no.
Yeah.
So it's just this sort of it's a gift. It's a gift. It like reminds you, the receiver, oh yeah, you can do this too.
Mhm.
And I think we all need that.
And to be honest, I always feel closer to the person who puts a boundary with me because I'm like, wow, I'm so honored that so and so feels like they can be honest with me. Like if
Yeah.
it was a more superficial relationship, they might just say yes or no. But here they are really telling me what's going on.
Yeah.
And I know that then if they show up, they really want to be there.
Mm-hmm. The telling what's going on is something that I feel like Carl and I have practiced a lot. Everything that we do impacts the other person because, especially now, it's like if I'm working, he's with our kids, or if he's out with friends, then like I'm like carrying the stuff that's back home or whatever. We're constantly shuffling things back and forth. But I find that the more we can say, like him saying, I can't, I'm busy, or I have work, that doesn't give me any information. But if he tells me, hey, can you carry more for me right now? Because this is what I have at work today. This is what I'm focusing on. Even just like a couple more details helps me feel like I'm on his team.
Yeah.
And then as I'm doing the thing, as I'm like picking up the slack because he's asked for help, I feel like I'm also helping. Not only am I helping with this, like carry the slack, I'm also helping with this project he's working on by giving him the time and space to do it. It just
Mhm.
is like a way better feeling. And it's just a tiny bit more information. And I think most people don't know that like
Yeah.
people actually care to know what's happening.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point.
Do we need to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day? Is there any truth to that?
There is some truth to that, and it's so hard to do. But it's because of our circadian rhythm, and
Sure.
that is regulated by a center in our brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. There will not be a quiz on that, but it it looks at levels of light and dark, and it regulates all kinds of rhythms in our body, from when we start to feel sleepy, when we start to feel alert, when we feel hungry. Our body is so cyclical and rhythmic and synced up with that type of a calendar. So if we keep our bedtime within 30 to 60 minutes, most days that really, really helps with regulating our sleep wake cycles. And there's a couple little hacks you can do with that that are easy to do. One is getting sunlight first thing in the morning, even if it's just throwing open the windows, or if you have to wake up in an alternative schedule, getting one of those light boxes, but getting blue light on your eyeballs within the first hour of waking. So important for regulating that circadian rhythm. And then the other thing is putting ourselves into darkness before bedtime. So if you think about it, on the evolutionary scale, for most of our existence, the sun set, we got those beautiful orange, pink light tones, and then it got dark, and then we felt sleepy and we went to bed. But now we look at our screens, which are brighter than daylight, and we have white lights overhead in our houses. So we keep an atmosphere of daylight until all of a sudden we flick off the lights and we expect ourselves to be tired. So, a couple little things you can do about that. One is I have patients who use salt lamps or pink type lights for the last hour or two of their night. So they turn off the overhead lights and do pink or orange light bulbs or salt lamps or something like that. But you can also buy a pair of like orange lens glasses and you put them on like an hour before bed. And that sunset color tricks your body into making melatonin and helps you wind down.
Interesting. Also, overhead lights are like the actual worst anyway.
They are. But
No.
those orange glasses, you'll look like you're from the 70s. Really funky fashion choice. But let me tell you, you'll start to feel sleepy within like 30 minutes to an hour of wearing them. And it lets you look at your screen if you have to without getting that blue light. And it's better than the settings on your phone to reduce the blue light.
Okay. Okay. What do you think? You saying melatonin made me think of this. What do you think about sleep supplements like melatonin or magnesium to help us sleep?
It's a mixed bag. I have to tell a story about my own sleep journey on this, and I promise I will get to your question.
No, you're
So,
fine.
through medical school, well, really my whole life, I told myself I was a bad sleeper. And, I tried before I was a naturopathic type doctor, I would do ZzzQuil and NyQuil and Benadryl and all those things to make myself sleep. And then once I got into naturopathic medical school, I tried them all: magnesium, melatonin, lavender, like you name it, I tried it. And when I started seeing my current naturopathic doctor, who's actually in the Colorado area, she's Ivy Moreno. I started seeing her and she's like, seriously, you're on enough sleeping herbs for like to knock out an elephant. Like, you don't need all of these. And it felt kind of scary that she took them away. But it reinforces this idea that we're bad sleepers and we need external help to sleep. And we actually are fully capable of sleeping as humans. So that whole long story kicked me off on, I did cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. Highly recommend. There's an app called Stellar Sleep that guides you through it, but it helps fix your relationship with sleep and teaches you sleep hygiene. And for most people, if they like do good sleep hygiene and kind of follow some of the like suggestions in the app and really like challenge their negative thoughts and feelings about sleep, most people can sleep. And any substance that we take, like whether it's melatonin or magnesium or lavender, over time our body adjusts and needs more of it, or they need something different. So I love the sleep aids in the short term. Like, let's say you have a big presentation tomorrow, you know you're going to be really anxious. Sure, take a melatonin, take a lavender pill, something like that. But on the day-to-day, for people who chronically can't sleep, the sleep meds are a Band-Aid, and I'm all about getting to the root cause, and that would be the cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia.
That's so good. That's so good. Sarah, I love this. I love this, and I love you so much. And I'm just I'm grateful for your wisdom always. I'm so grateful for your expertise. I'm just so excited that the women have gotten to meet you. And can you tell us, just before we go, where they can find you? And are you allowed to see, like, do you ever see patients virtually / are you, again, I know way more about like psychology than I do like actual medicine. Are you allowed to see patients from other places or virtually?
Yeah. So to find me, you can go to my website, which is ayanaturopathicmedicine.com, or we have an Instagram. And we do telehealth. We're actually starting out with just telehealth as we're getting going. But the rules, just like for psychologists, we have to be licensed in the state where the patient's feet are at the time of the appointment. So it's not based on where the patient lives. It's not based on where we're located. It's based on where the patient is at the time of the visit.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah. So, and when I say we, I have a business partner at Aya Naturopathic Medicines. There's two of us, and we're licensed in the New England area. So Connecticut, New Hampshire, Maine, and Massachusetts. And we're also licensed in California.
Okay.
But if anyone's interested in this approach, naturopathic doctors tend to all kind of see this in a similar way. And so you can go to the AANP, which is the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians, to find a doctor. And just since you're from there, if you're in the Colorado area, Dr. Ivy is in Denver and is also a great fit.
I love that. Sarah, that's so awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. We are absolutely going to have you back. And you guys, thanks so much for being here at Girls Night. This is fun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie. This was a blast.